All right, let's jump right in. There's a really fascinating and honestly pretty troubling term that's become a huge deal in Japan, especially among younger people. It's Doku Oya, and it literally translates to poisonous parent. It's used to describe a parent who's having a seriously negative effect on their child's life. So that makes you wonder, right? Japan is famous for its culture of deep family respect and strong bonds. So why on earth would a term like poisonous parent catch on so strongly? That's the big question we're going to dig into today.
Okay, so let's get a clear definition. Officially, Doku Oya points to a parent causing real harm, whether it's through psychological abuse, suffocating interference, or just way too many restrictions. Yeah, it's a super heavy term for what can be a really damaging relationship.
Now, to really get what's going on here, we have to look bigger than just individual families. The whole Doku Oya phenomenon, it turns out, is tied up in some of Japan's most unique cultural values.
You can think of it like this. There are certain things in the cultural soil that let this idea grow. First, there's Sekentei, which is this intense pressure to maintain a good public appearance. Then there's a more traditional view of the child as a kind of possession, an extension of the parent's own life. And of course, the huge pressure for a child's academic success to be a service to the family. When you mix all that together, well, the line between loving support and harmful control can get really, really blurry.
So what does this actually look like in real life? Well, it's interesting because the term gets used in two totally different ways these days. One for cases of severe abuse, and another that's a lot more casual and, frankly, a bit of a problem. Okay, when we talk about the severe cases, they tend to fall into two main types. First, you have the dominating parent. Their whole motivation is basically to live out their own unfulfilled dreams through their child. So they control everything, your career, who your friends are, your whole lifestyle, and they always say it's for your own good. The result? The child's own personality gets completely squashed. Then there's the other type, the dependent parent. This parent needs constant emotional support, basically making the child their caretaker. This forces the child into a life where they're always sacrificing their own needs. But, and this is a big but, here's where we get a major plot twist. The original serious meaning of Doku Oya is starting to get watered down in everyday talk. I mean, check this out. This is the kind of post you see all the time now. Someone's mom sets a perfectly reasonable curfew and bam, they're labeled a total Doku Oya. And see, that's the new problem, right? This casual use of the word lumps in minor, everyday complaints with actual serious psychological abuse. It really muddies the waters. So, for the kids in those truly toxic situations, why is it so hard to just leave? You know, even when they're adults with their own money. Well, that's where we get into this really powerful psychological trap that keeps them stuck. Think about it. You're facing these invisible walls. First, there's this massive fear of social judgment, of being labeled unfilial or a bad child. The guilt is intense, so intense that even just ignoring a parent's phone call can cause crippling stress. Plus, unlike in a lot of Western countries, it's not the default to just move out at 18. And on top of all that, there just aren't many public resources to support someone trying to cut ties. And all of this really boils down to something called the curse of filial piety. It's this deep-seated subconscious belief that being a good, dutiful child is the only path to having a normal, happy life. It acts like this invisible chain you carry your whole life, making real independence feel almost impossible to achieve. And the fallout from this? It's huge. It's not something you just get over. This curse can lead to a chronic lack of self-esteem, real trouble forming healthy relationships of your own, and this constant, nagging feeling of just difficulty living that can follow you for decades. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problem. It sounds pretty bleak, I know. But what about a way forward? How can we start moving toward a healthier idea of independence for everyone involved? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. One of the main solutions being proposed doesn't actually focus on the kids. It focuses on the parents. The thinking is, for a child to be truly free, the parent also needs to find their own purpose, life goals that exist completely outside of their children's successes. And that's where things like second career education come in. By helping parents build their own self-reliance and find fulfillment, it takes the pressure off the child to be their parent's everything. It helps break that whole cycle of dependency. And that's a perfect point to bring you into this. How does all of this sound from your perspective? In your country, what's the line between being a supportive parent and being overbearing or dependent? The ideas around family and independence are so different everywhere, and this is definitely not just a Japanese issue. Before we wrap up, we have to come back to this modern twist because it's so important. The casual, almost trendy misuse of Doku Oya is a serious problem. It distracts everyone's attention and resources away from the people who are suffering from genuine, severe abuse and who desperately, truly need support. Ultimately, it all comes down to this, really. What is true independence? It's not just about moving out or having a job. It's about the internal work of developing your own set of values, figuring out who you are, separate from who you were raised to be. And that leaves us with one last big question for you to think about. What does a healthy boundary between a parent and a child even look like? What kind of distance, whether that's psychological or physical, is needed to build that independence while still keeping a loving connection? We would love to hear what you think.